Pressure washer.
Yeah, a new pressure washer.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna call the meeting to order. We have 3 items of business tonight. We have to elect officers. We need to nominate and elect a chair and nominate and elect a vice chair. Then we have a hearing, and for that hearing, we'll be seeking Ed McLaughlin as a voting member for that hearing, because Kim Lenahan is excused. And then we will be reviewing our minutes from last meeting and amending or approving them as necessary. So we're gonna have to put off the hearing for about 5 minutes while we do our electing of officers, because we're not sure who's gonna run this meeting. Yeah, you got a choice.
I
What's that, ma'am?
nominate Mike Dean to be
I
continue as chair.
No, we're gonna do the,
I second that motion.
Okay.
You've been nominated and seconded.
okay,
Please to pay attention.
Ed, you should be participating in this also, so when it's time to vote.
I third it.
All right, any other nominations? I should be fair to the town. They've asked us not to have the same person sit as chair every year. They don't have any authority to tell us how to elect our chairs, but they didn't ask us. They asked all of the boards and committees that they have purview over.
With a letter or
Yeah,
something.
they think it's a good idea to rotate the chairmanship, and I'm not opposed, but I like doing it, and
I don't know.
And furthermore, because we're a quasi judicial organization,
yeah.
it seems to me that since you're the one that knows as much as Ed, who has been the chairman, that you ought to continue to be the chairman because you know how to do it. I don't think we should feel like we have to rotate officers for
Right.
that.
Yeah, we don't have to, but I
No.
think
Yeah,
it's about
one
it.
who pushed for the rotation of officers.
Select.
I think that going 2 or 3 years, even 4 years or 2 terms. Mike's only been doing this, what, 2 years now, Mike?
Well, they can't
If
do
that.
that.
No, I think it's
Last year was,
Yeah, so I think, I don't want to see somebody in here for 12 years, 10 years is what my issue was when I was pushing for it.
As a chairman.
As chairman, correct. And
Which we have
rotating the
had in the
chairman
past.
every like so many years, you guys can decide that, but I think that, 2 years, 3 years, that's good, now you have the experience and you're going
You
through the
have some
learning curve.
you have some continuity.
But I don't want to see 12 years like we've had in the past, so.
okay,
mhm.
thank you, sir.
Mhm.
Any other nominations? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. I'll sit as chair again. All right, nominations for vice chair.
I'll do it again. It's not a very hard job because you're the chair.
Well, in view of looking to have the chairmanship rotated, maybe next year, maybe the year after, we might want to consider having the vice chair actually run meetings, whether or not the chair is here on occasion, like we could trade off. That way the vice chair
That's
gets
a
some
good idea.
experience doing it.
Do you want to go back to Madeline then, because she was chairing before, so I don't know how you feel about
Vice
this.
chair, but should we do that? And then
Okay.
we alternate? At
Yeah,
least
no, I'll
that?
nominate Madeline to be the vice chair. I'll nominate Madeline to be vice chair.
I'll second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? We have any, I'm sorry, I didn't ask for other nominations. You volunteered, but
Yeah,
do you want to nominate yourself?
well, you've already elected her. It's okay.
I'm very sorry, Susan.
Are you you're gonna switch off though, right?
Yeah.
That's
You want to
If
be
you were
co-vice
if you
chair?
were last year, then you can be it next year. You can alternate.
It's fine.
Okay.
I'm not
And you can
complaining.
sit, unless we're worried about collusion, you could sit chair next year. You can be vice chair.
Any nominations for secretary?
We don't have,
I don't know,
We
I
got
don't
Whitney.
know how to be a meeting, and unless I'm forced to do it, I won't learn. I'll always defer to Mark.
I
Like,
thought you did a
so-
good job when I was chair and you had to fill in while I was in Hawaii. I thought you did a great job.
Well, I certainly feel as if I could use some more practice, so
All
I'm
right.
happy to do that.
um,
For the minutes, can I just get clarification that both you guys have both abstained from the vote, like you didn't vote for chair and you didn't vote for,
I voted for chair.
you did vote,
Yeah.
okay, did you
What, I voted
for vice chair?
I voted for vice.
Okay, just want to make sure I have it right, thank
So
you.
do we have 5 affirmative votes for, Madeline Johnson for vice chair?
Yeah, sure.
Yes, okay, so 5-0. And that concludes our election of officers. And let's move right on to having you, Mr. Taylor, read us the hearing notice for this hearing. And then we'll have a presentation from the hearees.
Yes, the applicants. I just grabbed my notification here, I'll put it in the envelope. It's like the auditors. All right, so this is
And to be heard tonight will be,
drum roll. It's land use case number Z 23-05-01. Brian and Faith Goodness are seeking variance relief from the infield zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 401.1, paragraphs L and M, to construct a storage shed within the prescribed setbacks to the street and to a river. Subject parcel is 3.3 acres. It's located at 1120 New Hampshire Route 4A, tax map 40, lot 14, in the R1 residential zoning district. Subject parcel is owned by Brian and Faith Goodness, which I gotta say is my favorite name so far I've run into in Enfield.
all right, thank you, sir.
So you guys can come up, applicants. We got a couple chairs for you right in the front here.
Yes, you're coming up. Thank you for sending those pictures.
Oh, you're
Yeah,
very
that helps.
welcome. Excellent.
I had a hard time finding the house.
Madam Secretary, will you please record that I am appointing Mr. McLaughlin to sit as a full board member in this hearing?
Sorry to hear Mike couldn't make it. I mean, Tim couldn't make it, you know.
Yeah,
So,
he's having a rough
in the-
time of it.
yeah.
Back in the hospital or something.
Oh dear.
Okay. Good niece. Goodnesses.
Good night.
Nine.
I have a super quick, like, off-topic question. Is that, when were these pictures taken? Just some curiosity, because I live downriver on the knot. I'm kind of curious. Recently.
I think it's Thursday or.
Okay, so
Friday. Yeah,
it's
very
super recently that it
yes.
was, that, so it's full, whatever, this is hot, pretty high water.
That's very high,
Great.
yeah.
Yes, okay.
How are the beavers doing?
Oh, they got a whole new thing going.
Would one of you like to present your request, your application?
So we are hoping to build a shed on our property because the Notch River runs through our property pretty close to the road. We would have to have our shed. We can't make it between the road and the river. We would need variance to put it anywhere on our property, so.
There is no 50 feet from the river on your property.
Right, maybe in the woods somewhere tucked in the back, but not in the usable property. So we're hoping to put it in a spot. It looks like it'd be best to keep from water erosion on our property. Our property used to be the flood pond for the lumber mill, and it existed in the 1800s, so it gets pretty marshy in most of the other spots. But this is on an elevated plane, so we keep it way, way, way above the water.
Interesting. Anything else?
I was just gonna add, our request for the shed, it's a pre-built shed that we would have delivered, we would put hard pack down. And our goal in getting the shed is to have better storage for a lot of our home equipment, both the lawn and garden maintenance. And then that would allow us to put some of the recreational vehicles that we have within the barn versus sitting outside or sitting at somebody else's house. And the other thing we've talked about is moving some potentially flammable liquids from inside the barn to the shed for an additional layer of safety between the house, the main living quarters, and where those things are kept.
All right, thank you. May we have a motion to approve or deny so that we can discuss the issue?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the land use case D 23-01-05-101 for variance relief from the Enfield zoning ordinance, Article 4, Section 401.1, paragraph L and M, to construct a storage shed within the prescribed setbacks to the street and a river.
Second,
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yeah, I have some things that I'd like to ask as well. Go ahead, Susan.
Do you own property across the Knox River?
Yes.
In the
I'm not.
wildlife
I'm
management?
looking at this and
Yeah, I'm not kind of
not,
confused.
and
about
I'm
the
in
lot
trouble
line.
with this.
Yeah, it's
Huh?
an
I can't
odd
be right.
lot. So we've got
They have 3 acres.
about an acre.
Yeah, can you pull up the magical map,
Yes.
Rob, so we can all see it up
We're
there?
confused because the map that we got in the packet seems to indicate that you have property in something that is colored as though it were the WMA for the area. So
Oh,
we
I
just want to
see.
see those boundaries.
I can just zoom it down.
Down, zoomy
Getting
zoom.
close.
Well,
You
it's
guys
the
are
gray
lost.
house. I know it's the gray.
Point four.
Really
Yeah,
strong there.
so,
It wouldn't be the first time Google Maps has been wrong, but in Google Maps, bordering the Knox River to the left of the Knox River, all the way up the hill is green, and it's labeled as the Enfield Wildlife Management Area.
Oh, I see.
I know it's not the one. See
So,
that? So we're wondering,
oh, yeah, but
what is that?
is that whole piece that's outlined in yellow is your property?
Green.
yes.
Yes, because when you go past the house, it looks like they're gonna fall in the river.
green
It's
is
really,
forest.
the river's really close to the back of the house.
All right, so the green is forest.
And the
Not,
white is open.
Okay.
what's the
You can
terrain
see-
like back there?
On the far side of the river,
Mushy.
hills, a lot of it's actually, so the property in the wildlife area slopes down towards our house, but then the area in our woods is elevated, so we have a few waterways going through, but our woods is actually quite dry.
Do you have access across the river to the house, to the land?
We have a small footbridge right now. There was
No
a,
vehicle access?
no, so
That's correct.
at one point there was a large bridge there, but
It
before we
collapsed
bought
before we
it,
purchased it.
yeah.
Is that what we see crossing the river?
Yeah, that does not
There's a
exist,
picture of
and
it
it doesn't
in
look
here, too.
like
One
it
of the
has
pictures shows the little footbridge.
for a while,
That's
yeah.
the footbridge that we have now.
But I believe that is what is on that map is the bridge that no longer exists.
Yes, I think that's correct.
So my problem with this variance request is you have no grounds. There's nothing unique about this property that would qualify for hardship. So I'm curious to know why you couldn't, not curious, but I need you to explain why you can't put that shed on the other side of the river, besides simple inconvenience.
I think that from the grade of the land on the other side of the river would be such that there would have to be excavation work to put footings or a foundation. To cross the river with the equipment, there would be a larger impact on the Knox River, a greater disturbance there. I think that runoff would be more of a consideration based on how you would have to do just very basic excavation work to get the footings in. I know for another shed that is pretty close to there,
I'm gonna get her.
we had to do a
Yeah,
full
fine.
slab versus just footings. So I think the hardship would be from a financial perspective, because they would have to apply for DES permitting to build a bridge suitable to get dump trucks over, excavators over, and that sort of thing. And the bridge would have to be built within 250 feet of the water. So, I would estimate roughly that they would sink no less than $150,000 into it for a 10 by 12 shed.
Excuse me, can you identify yourself?
I'm Holly West, MPD Building Contractors, but also Enfield resident.
Okay,
Are you speaking on their behalf?
yeah, what, and,
Oh, sorry, yes, we're here with them because we'll likely be helping with the base work, getting the stabilization costs, the hard pack down and all of that.
Thank you, Holly.
Mike, how do they get lawnmowers and things across that little,
Yeah.
tiny, there's no access.
Sorry, that's what I was gonna say.
It's
The main
inaccessible.
problem
It's not
for that
practical.
would be the lawnmower.
So it is a hardship that they can't get at the land.
Money isn't a hardship, though.
Money, no, we don't.
No,
It's
it's
not,
gotta
it's
be the land.
inaccessibility, it is their land.
Well, my question is also then why,
They on both sides of the
You're
river.
right, there's no,
Yeah, but this, one part of that piece of land is pretty level.
The other
Where
side
you
is
got
septic,
across.
so.
You can't.
In the back, so
Yes.
that
Yeah.
is the bottom of where the flood pond was. And it's very wet down there. Like we don't,
No, right on the other side of the river.
On the wood
There's a
side.
On
whole
the wood
area
side?
that's very nicely,
there's a
might
lot,
slope very little.
we have a
But
lot.
then you have another area that goes up like that.
I think what they're
Right.
saying that is to get the shed over there and to
You
put
have
the
to build a
foundations in.
bridge.
they-
Yeah, but you have to find out what, you know,
I think
I'm
that,
not positive. I know, I hear what you're saying, Holly, but
Just give us a minute to,
Yeah.
think,
it just blows me away what kind of bridge he had to put in.
right?
Now, I don't think he had to put in this big humongous
You know,
thing,
we,
you know?
across the no-name stream down on the inside of Glen Road, in order to get any kind of a walkway going across to fix what we had, we would have had to go to DES, come in with a site survey, a new build that would have been approved by DES. And the whole thing had to be engineered with a brand new bridge to put in there, just to have a walkway to go from Meadow Lane over to Glen Road for people that have beach access across from Meadow Lane down on the beach, down on the Glen Road side. And that was, we just looked at the money, went, we're done.
It doesn't make any sense to me to have to put your shed across, it's called a river, but it floods. The only time it's probably dry is in August. It just doesn't make sense that they would have to put their shed across the river. I don't see a problem with wanting to put it on the road side of the river. I would too.
my question is, it's sort of a, you know, it's a lot that goes lengthwise this way. Why are you putting it directly behind the house instead of to the side, what is here, I would call the left side?
Where the pointer is right now.
Yeah, what's the objection to putting it there?
So at the very far end, closest to the Enfield Center Fire Station, it's a pretty steep slope. There's a fire hydrant located over there. And then the flat section of that part of our property is where our septic tank is.
Okay.
You have a septic line running from your house all the way along Route 4
Not all the
there?
way that, it's the section immediately, as we're looking at this, to the left of the house is where the septic tank is. That's the flat section. Everything else slopes down.
And
Is this a septic tank or the leach field you're talking about?
Leach field.
Leach field,
Yeah.
sorry.
Thank you.
It's,
And to the right of the house, you're close to the lot line there,
So,
but,
that's actually the reason that I included the map that I did. All the online ones make it look like it's very close to our barn, and the line is actually considerably further, like that. That is not to scale.
But those houses are close to I have to drive past a site. And those houses are close together and it looks like there's quite a distance between your house and the firehouse, but it isn't. They're right there.
It's, most of that is also
Yes,
wooded,
I-
and the river runs very close to Route 4 there. We had,
so that would be this picture, correct?
that's the other side of the house. That is actually where we're hoping to put the shed. It's a little hard to see, but there's some orange snow stakes there.
Okay,
And that's right next to that wood
Okay.
pile is where we're hoping to install it.
okay.
Are you saying that this line here is actually not that close to the barn?
that's correct.
And
So
you
is-
want to put the shed roughly here?
I think that's a good
Yeah,
estimate. Back
down a little bit closer
Yeah,
towards the river
okay.
probably, but yeah, right
That's where
about
they
there.
want- That's,
Wait,
there's.
sorry, I didn't hear what,
And that's
sorry, what did you
70
say,
foot
Mike? Say
Yeah.
From
that,
the road to the,
They're talking about putting the shed about where that numeral 5 is. But this line is actually further over here.
And that's why the map I included, I think was, I don't have it on me, but
It's right here. This map you're talking about here.
Make the.
yeah.
bigger-
See where that was from? I think that was,
That's from our,
Instead of that map, can you put up the real map,
I'll get to the floor here in a second.
the town map?
The tax map?
Yeah, the tax map, thank
that is
you.
the tag.
That's what this is.
That's
And then
the
I
tag.
just got the layers.
That's a GIS map,
Thank you.
isn't it?
Deactivate the,
Here,
I think
Can you
she's
pass this
looking for
over?
the PDF.
so she can look at this, it's in.
What's
It's
that?
in the, that's in the
Susan,
package.
Susan,
Susan, if you
it's in
look
the
at
package here.
the package here.
I've got it right here. I have
There's
it.
that, there's that.
But those houses are really close to, those buildings along that part of Route 4A are right on top of one another. They're really close.
Yeah, that map, Street View,
What if
the
you-
area past our
Yeah.
yards is deceiving.
And why, you know, looking at this map again, why so close to the river? Why isn't it closer to the house?
So it's a flat spot. I worry about water erosion a lot. I do landscaping and I have to fix it all over the place all day long. And that's a flat spot. So anywhere else on the lawn, water would be coming at it. That wouldn't be getting hit by runoff from the road. We want to put a gutter on it to collect rainwater in barrels, so there will be no water hitting it even from itself. And that the picture that shows the river shows, so it's
This one.
no, this side view.
Wait a minute, this one.
Yes, so it is, I can't remember what the
Oh, I see,
measurement
there's
was
sort of a
from the
depression.
river,
Okay,
but
correct.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's elevated. I mean, for the river
This
to
is
hit that.
This part you're saying
That's
is
the high part.
It's slightly higher.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Is
where
this,
the bridge is, where we want to put the shed is actually further in the background and it's probably
So-
10 feet above the river.
Right about where that wood structure is pretty close. to where
Yeah,
we're
actually,
going
that's very
install the
close
shed.
to it, yeah.
Can I, as a landscaper, outside of being the applicant, as a landscaper, your professional opinion, this would be the best spot to minimize erosion, water flow and such like
That
that.
is, yes, that is why I chose this spot.
And next to the house, say next to the barn where those bushes are.
Go that way.
So it will,
Well, I mean, I'm trying to figure out why, you know,
Oh, I see,
you're.
yeah.
That's
So
from
from the
Route
building
4.
perspective, getting it closer to the barn would be less favorable for both structures. I mean, this is an older property. The house dates to about 1850. The barn would be a similar era. There was recently some extensive renovation work done by Thomas Hersey. However, with an older building, I'm sure most people are familiar that there's higher maintenance needs than with a newer structure. It's unlikely that there's any sort of house wrap or anything protecting the barn from rot for any water penetrating through the siding. So you'll need adequate room between the shed and the barn to do further, structural rot repair and things, as the structure continues to age.
All right, let me stop y'all there for a moment. I don't think it matters where they put it on the property to us, because it's the same no matter where they put it,
Correct.
unless they go across the river.
Correct.
So for the matter of hardship, let me just be right up front. I have no opposition to this. I'm looking for a way to satisfy the hardship requirement. And the hardship requirement says we have to find some special property of the land that distinguishes it from other properties in the area. And there isn't one.
Well, the river runs through it,
Knox River running
The
right.
river runs through all the properties along
but
there.
all those other properties, if they came to us with a similar kind of requirement, how would we look at their issue in any different way than we may look at this one? Because we're looking at unique characteristics of this piece of property in the way that it is shaped and where they have their
Yeah,
leach field. I wouldn't want to be digging near a house barn built in the 1850s either with any kind of a foundation, because of what may happen. You find out
What
what's
do you
really
want to
underneath
do?
right there.
just a.
So I have real issues, not looking at the unique characteristics of this land by itself and say it has unique characteristics that are hardship. If another property came up along the river, I think you'd have to look at another set of unique circumstances, say whether it's the same as this one.
All right, that's a good point. We've all had a chance to talk and Celia's been waiting patiently. I would like her to have a good few minutes.
Okay, and then question to,
I
You're
want to speak to what you said about all the properties on the river. The town, our zoning ordinance has a 50-foot setback from any river or stream. There's a reason. And that is to protect the waters that go by. Now, if everybody on that side with the houses right on the river, which historically 1850 has been there, wanted to do that, all they're gonna do is gonna add more silt and sand and everything else into that river. That's not what we want, the town wants. You've got to protect our waterways, and that's not, I know it's just a little shed, but
Right.
once you let everybody, someone do it, you gotta let them watch
So
it.
you're, can I answer?
But I want, let me go,
When she's done.
what I'm going. I've been looking at the land where where the shed is marked. I'm not quite sure where the land is pretty wet. And I'm not crazy about that being covered by something, where he suggested to have the barn. Because I think he'd flood his property more with a shed there, but you know, here, there, anywhere. Back to what the law of the town is. We cannot change zoning ordinance. Can't do that. So I think we'd set precedents, and if there was no 50-foot setback, my opinion would be put it up closer to the house and get it out of where it is, because that's, to me, is wet, and it's drier up closer to the house. That's if you didn't have your 50-foot setback.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
I had a technical question. I thought, did I understand correctly there, it doesn't have a foundation?
The shed,
Yeah, what sort of a foundation will it have?
it's just sitting on 6 beams on the bottom built into the shed, and that will go on the ground.
On hard pack.
Yeah,
Hard
yeah.
pack, okay.
Stabilization clause.
Yeah, typically we do that on stabilization cloth to prevent any sort of, silt erosion runoff going.
So
What about oil from the?
and then,
It's actually a good thing you brought that up. I don't know if you guys remember the dump truck incident from last year. Faith and Brian were the unfortunate property owners who that impacted. And a person without a CDL drove a full triaxle dump truck off the road, fully loaded with sand, into the Knox
Oh,
River
yeah, I
on their
remember that.
property.
I didn't see it, but I remember.
Oh, they
Yes.
heard it, yeah.
That is, that's on the side of one of the ones that was in question. It's past where their septic and leach field is. But, having structures closer to the road, ideally, everybody who operates a dump truck does have a CDL. And that people are, able to keep their vehicles on the roadway. Having it closer, Faith and Brian can tell you more, but they have children who do help with the household chores, including one child who has the lawnmower, mows the lawn. Even with the orientation of the doors away from the road, I myself as a parent would be hesitant to want that shed closer to the road, just because, they've already had an incident where a vehicle went off on their property, and it would be really awful to position the road, the shed closer to the road. And it'd be awful if it was Faith and Brian, but even worse, if it was one of their children trying to help out with the lawn chores and the maintenance around the house and be struck by a vehicle.
Okay, we've had the technical question answered. Ed has a question.
Just want to go back to what Sealy talked about. The reason I asked about when you mentioned that he was a landscaper, I wanted to understand how a landscaper would look at the property, looking for the driest point in the property. And the fact that he's talking about having rain barrels and gutters to collect the water to minimize the kind of runoff. I think that as we look at the land and we look at, I believe the expertise that he's talked about, and it sounds good to me, is if you pick the high point that's not going to have most of the runoff around it, and you're trying to do the best to mitigate the runoff off the roof, that you're doing the best you can for the town to allow you to be able to get something. So I thought it was a well thought out presentation that he gave us.
Who did it?
Go ahead. I'm giving you back the
Who
floor.
who did?
Who's the landscape, what do you
He's a
say?
professional landscaper.
Brian is.
Oh.
Sorry.
He's a professional landscaper. You know,
Right.
And you can go back to MTD, who here is, supporting you, but they're also the ones who do a lot of the work in our town.
Right,
So I'm just
right.
trying to understand why he picked the spot he picked and why, looking at the leach field, looking at the septic, looking at the river and
But
such.
are you a soil scientist?
No.
You know, see, I gave you a soil scientist one time. You told me you
Gotta
needed
know
a soil
the
scientist.
soil for this kind of thing.
You told me you needed more than a soil scientist. I remember that conversation vividly.
Okay, let's go back to Susan.
Let's put the zoning ordinances.
The Madeline was.
It's Geo.
She asked her question.
Okay,
I have
well,
another.
you mentioned mill pond. Where was the dam for this mill pond? And is part of your yard the bottom of the former mill pond?
So I believe so. It's next to where the fire station is. We have a lot of large stone structure right around the river. It looks like where they would have perhaps put boards or something else to stop the river's flow. And one of our neighbors actually works at the Historical Society. And he had shared some old photos with us and told us some of the history about it. So that's where we learned about that.
But there was a mill there on that side of Route 4A.
We have two mill foundations on our
There were a
property.
couple of mills there. And that's the
Yeah.
mill pond.
So our property has the foundations
Wait a
for
minute,
the.
please.
Oh, yes,
Stop.
sorry.
Is this just curiosity or is there something relevant to this
Yeah,
variance?
I think it's relevant if it's the bottom, if their backyard's the bottom of the mill pond, it's likely to be a sea of mud.
I would like us, if we could, I'm asking formally
And
as the
that
chair,
goes to that goes to,
let's allow them to pick the spot for their,
yeah, well, I'm
Allow them
asking
and
if
their-
it was on the bottom of the mill pond.
what I'm asking you to do is focus on the variance issue. We're not gonna choose where they put it on their property generally. I mean, specifically. Okay, we can approve what they've asked for. Sealy's made the point that it's within the 50-foot setback already. That's probably a big part of it. I just don't want to get too far afield into talking about without a soil scientist here, unless you want to suspend and call for a soil scientist to tell us whether it's appropriate to put a building there. If you want to do that, then we can delve into that issue. Otherwise, I think we should allow them to tell us whether or not the land on their property is appropriate to hold a building, a small building. Do you mind?
Whatever you wanna do.
I would guess to get back to focusing on the variance issues specifically.
Well, that's what I'm trying to find out, is if it's appropriate.
I think we have to rely on them to tell us that, unless we want to go out there or call a soil scientist in to do that. Madeline?
Yeah, I have one more question. I don't know if this is equally irrelevant, and that is my understanding from things that I have been doing on my property, which has all kinds of water, whatever, it's very similar issues that every single piece of it is within some sort of setback. Is that there were also questions about the amount of impermeable surface or the ratio of impermeable surface to the lot or where it was? Is that a question here?
Yeah, so that, not really,
Well-
because they have 3 acres of land behind it, which is all woods. So if
Well-
they did a lot assessment of, Ratios. but you do a lot assessment by the whole lot.
It's true.
Do it by lot, you don't do it by side, so they
Okay.
have plenty of,
All right, okay, that answers my question then.
Doesn't make sense to me.
it doesn't make sense, but
One
that's the way,
Yeah.
that's the way the law is written. That I do know.
So about the law, yes, the zoning ordinance is the law, and our purpose here is to give relief from an unreasonable application of the law. And that is something that we can do that is a reason that we can say it would be. I've got stop. I got jammed. I'm still looking for a way to satisfy the hardship requirement. I have to be able to say, in court, if this were to be challenged, here is how I think you met the hardship requirement, and I have to be able to convince these people. And what I'm looking at now is that, it would not satisfy the purposes of the ordinance to prevent you from putting a shed here. The purpose of the ordinance is to protect the river, and I cannot see how putting a layer of hard pack in that section and a 120 square foot shed there, I can't see how that would make the situation worse for the river. Celia, can you,
Precedence.
What you
I'm not
said
sure-
makes
Rob
sense to
seems
me.
to have a comment.
yeah, and I'm trying to hold him off. I'm not too worried about precedent because we are directed to take each case on its own merits. We can look back for other examples of similar cases, but we're not bound by precedent. Somebody can't come in here and say, well, you let them do it, so you have to let us do it.
Correct.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
But you're right in that it does, it does set an example, and we do try to apply the law justly to everybody.
I have a question about law, and is there any accommodation or not accommodation made for how essential the building is?
I don't think so. Remember, I haven't mentioned this for quite a while, but remember, we're talking about the land, not the people on it. We're getting a
Right.
variance that will run with the land. So if we say,
Right.
yeah, you can have a variance to put a shed here, and they sell it to somebody else, those people get that same
Right.
right that we've granted. So it's not really about I don't think it's about the building or the person's need or their financial situation as much as it is, do we think this is an acceptable use of the land? In the most blunt form, all we're required to do is allow the taxpayer, the landowner, to make some use of that land. So we could say you are making use as a residence and therefore there is no hardship. I mean, that would be the most blunt, strictest interpretation of the law. However, we're allowed to be quite a lot more gentle than that.
I thought it was reasonable use of the land.
Well,
I mean,
so I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm asking. I mean, if somebody's saying, that we've had questions with, well, never mind. Whatever.
Please.
Are they being able to use their land as they, purchase it or saw it, or, as they bought it?
I don't think you
I
can,
don't,
I don't think you can argue that denying them access to a shed prevents their use of the property as a residence.
is it reasonable use?
Yeah.
wait, there are too many
Yeah.
double negatives. Too many negatives there, then I start to get weird.
The shed is a convenience.
Yeah,
Oh,
Do we want to deny it because, and if there were some grave risk to the river, I would deny it in a heartbeat. Because that is what the law is there to do
Right.
specifically in this case,
right.
but I don't think there is. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
all the abutters were notified and none of them are here, right?
So we take that as tacit approval.
Yeah, that isn't, that the abutters aren't objecting to it.
Yeah.
And that's been one of the things that's always been a problem for us, is when abutters come in and say, we don't
Yeah,
want
don't
that.
do that.
What does Rob have? Are we allowed to listen to what Rob?
Okay, Rob, thank you.
No.
I was just gonna recommend starting a list of findings of fact.
Yes, thank you. We need to do that.
Starting one.
We need to
Findings of
write our
fact.
findings of
Now,
fact.
that,
It is a fact that the
well,
location of the shed is on the high point within the land.
Does that count as a fact? That's what.
That's a fact.
We're being told, but is it?
The proposed location.
the land.
According to the owner of the property, it is.
It is. I went and looked.
I'm okay with accepting that they're
Okay.
not falsely representing the facts.
Okay,
That's why I asked about his professional
Right.
qualifications too, just to make sure that we could have some.
Got
The
it.
distance
Yes, ma'am.
from the river to the road, to 4A is, 72. Yeah, right. But the, shed is at, 16 feet from the river, where
may I ask one last
50
question
feet
of
in the
the,
zoning ordinance.
With the leach field in the middle.
when you, this is sort of based on personal experience, does the FEMA consider this floodland or a floodplain?
Yeah.
You have to have flood insurance when you got a mortgage?
We were not
No.
required to have flood insurance, but we also have not sought out that assessment. And so if we were to then go back to
I
homeowners,
believe we did ask, yeah.
yeah, so as far.
Maybe you weren't there, I did ask.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I didn't want.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They couldn't.
Got a mortgage on my house, we didn't have.
They could do.
We got a loan letter.
They
that's
could-
why I meant to-
Yeah, we.
And I told the bank, we said, yeah, we already know that.
Do you think it would make
It's even 12 feet from the.
So it's because we're 150 feet of any big
I
water.
think-
body.
Right, no, we had to demonstrate that we were high.
True, I don't know why.
High enough.
They didn't
They didn't want to-
Does the water ever come beyond that big
That's
rock?
why they don't have it close to the barn.
so actually, when we had that week of rain, a significant amount of the river had exceeded that to the point where the walking bridge itself was almost washed out. Last year, when there was the spring thaw and the snow melted, we actually lost a board off the walking bridge just from the speed of the river coming through and getting pretty high up there.
If it's, it wouldn't make that big rock.
I don't know that it made it to the rock, but pretty close to it.
Yeah, it's up there, pictures of the water up to the rock.
But not over the.
But there was, in the time I was here, I have never seen the river as high as it was after that rainstorm, and there was a loon swimming upstream. And, you know, I was standing there, it was, the loon must be out of its mind.
Don't like
There's a lot of water this time, it was just roaring. And, you know, around that island behind my house, it was just roaring, it was way up over.
Can I do another finding of fact?
Yes.
Finding of fact is that they're going to build a shed with gutters and rain barrels to control the runoff off of the roof. Off of the impermeable surface.
I'm also planning on planting wildflowers, native wildflowers around it. Should help the soil.
And good for pollinators.
Rain barrels are not gonna hold all the water. So where will the runoff go?
But often we have, when people are using the rain barrels, they choose the style that has, the shut off spigot. And you can either, you know, route your hose up to water the flowers that they have toward the front of the property. So that way you're continuously using water off of it, versus running it out of your well.
Thank you.
And then one thing that,
Yes, what do they have now? Do they have 50? They still have 50? I can't remember whether they still have 50, you know?
What's that?
DES.
What about?
Do they still have 50 feet?
Yes, so from the shoreline buffer. Actually, go up to 250 woodlands buffer.
Right.
From my house to the back of my picture.
So they wouldn't be saying that or doing that if they felt that, I know there's a lot of things that can be done to hold that with the gardens and rain gardens and things like that, but they still require with the hold off, you know, the runoff, and they still want it filtered out. And that's the way they said, you know, that's what they say. So it,
and plantings are one of the things they encourage on.
Pardon me?
perimeter. Plantings are one of the things, native plantings are one of the things they recommend, you know, around the edges
yeah,
of the water.
certain, yeah,
Native wildflowers are good, things like blueberry
Right.
bushes and
Right.
that sort of,
no fertilizer.
right, no fertilizer. Yeah, things that can sustain themselves in the natural environment.
No.
And
Mike, one thing for your list is no building permit required. Small enough.
Writing.
I think another thing that hadn't been mentioned yet is in the discussion on the other side of the river. In the woods, it's largely, well, amongst the trees, ferns and moss. So I don't think they've ever had a wetland scientist out to determine that, but based on the plant life that's there, it wouldn't be unlikely.
On the
Would be
other
on-
side.
Yeah. So that may eliminate it from being a thing anyway.
Sealy, did I hear earlier on that that's conservation land behind theirs?
Yeah, I think so. That's what he saw. I didn't see that.
That's Jim Proctor.
It was the, wildlife
That's
management.
conservation land that belongs to the town road?
That's Jim Proctor.
I can hear you.
You're talking-
Owned by the Proctors.
Oh,
This lot here,
yeah.
that's the Proctors.
All right,
Jimmy loves the mountain.
Are you gonna read us your findings of fact?
yeah, I'll read them out. Location of the shed is the high point on the land. Distance between river and road is 72 feet. Shed location is 16 feet to river. Lot is completely covered by setbacks. Shed will be built with gutters, rain barrels, and flower gardens to control runoff from the roof. The applicant is a professional landscaper and opines that this is the best location. No building permit is required. Placing on the far side of the Knox will be considerably more expensive and disruptive to the land. Anything else I need to add?
They probably to the land and waterway, because it would require
That's true.
reversing that.
I also want to add that this property is not unique in its characteristics.
Yeah, because look at the other properties next to it, the lots 15, 16, and 17, which are even smaller.
Yeah,
15 is the fire station.
Okay.
That is unique. It doesn't fit half the things we wanted to build or buy for it.
Ski thing is for sale.
Yeah, it's that closed.
A nice building.
It is.
Beautiful.
It's a great business. Too bad it closed.
Was it you that was telling me that the color of the house was an accident?
Yeah, the color on our house was an accident, and so, we mentioned the Hersey company had done extensive renovation on the home, and,
I
when we were
love the color.
oh, it's beautiful. So it was a complete mix up at La Valley's and they decided they liked it anyway and we love it, that beautiful dark baby blue.
It's close to like the Phillipsburg from Benjamin Moore, which is a historic color. It's part of the historic collection.
okay, if there's no more discussion to be had,
Would you read the last couple that you wrote?
oh, right, I wrote another, property is not unique in the neighborhood.
Right, so what are our 5 tests here? That we have to satisfy.
Question, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. I think Sealy argues and
Yeah.
that it would
I
be,
think-
It would
I think
be.
it would be.
Okay,
because it would contribute somewhat to the detriment of the, I don't even,
And an cumulative effect also with that. Putting everybody on the, coming in to do the same thing.
right, just because it's a small river doesn't mean it.
Exactly.
We afford
And it
the
goes into
lakes
Muskoma Lake.
a
and
similar
Muskoma-
anti-overcrowding
For
protection.
that,
Right.
just for that.
yeah, it's speaking as the Heritage Commission, I'm not sure I'm thrilled about it, but.
That's
My
why
call.
you get away from the road.
All right, spirit of the ordinance is observed.
Getting rid of the 50-foot setback. Health and welfare, everybody.
The letter of the ordinance is not observed, but I think the spirit
The spirit
is observed. You can't talk anymore, so I'm sorry.
Right,
What
We
do you-
crossed a boundary that I didn't make clear. I'll make it clear now. I'm closing the public hearing. We're gonna debate amongst ourselves.
Okay.
Sorry, Holly, it's okay.
We might open it again to come back to you,
What-
but
Yes, Ed, when you
The
say
spirit
the
of the ordinance
spirit,
is
what,
like. Okay, the
You mark
way
it
I look
down
at,
for,
when I was
7:45.
here as a full-time member,
right,
there's 2 rights. One of them I refer to as police rights, which are the laws, regulations. Then there's property rights, property owner's rights. Our job is to look and find, what does this say? What does this want to do? What is the middle ground? What is the spirit of what we're trying to do? We have reasonable use of the land. We have the zoning laws that say this is the hard and fact approach. What we try to do is balance those two things, not to the detriment of the town, but not to the detriment of the landowner either, coming up with an approach that balances those things.
Got it.
That's the spirit to me.
Okay.
Not what the definition is. It's,
Do you have the definition there? What it says, the,
I didn't bring my book in.
oh, okay.
Wait a second. It might be right in the ordinance.
I think what Ed's saying is that, yes, this may not be the letter of the law, but our job is to find an accommodation between the letter and the spirit of the law.
But it doesn't have anything
Sound
to
right?
do with property rights, I know that. I know what you're saying.
When you own land, you have property rights. They're built in, they're inherent in the ownership of the land.
That is the express purpose of the ZBA, is to act as a buffer between the constitutional rights of the property owner to exercise, to use their land, their own land, and the right of the community to regulate that use.
I think that the variance the variance would not be contrary to the public interest, and I think the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. And
Okay.
that's because of the geography. There's not a lot you can do about that.
Substantial justice is done.
No.
Substantial justice is done is more about, if we do this for other people and don't let you do it, that's not okay. It's not about whether you had input on the construction of your house.
Well, I would say yes to this.
Would the values of surrounding properties be diminished?
No.
No,
I don't think so either. Would the literal enforcement of the provisions of the ordinance result in an unnecessary hardship?
I still know.
You say no,
No,
it would not result in an unnecessary hardship.
not with the land. I mean, it's hardship of the land, correct?
I'd say yes.
Or am I wrong? I could be wrong.
I'd say yes.
You think that the literal enforcement would result in an unnecessary hardship? We don't,
And once again, my reason for that is geography.
okay. You think that that property is unique enough that we shouldn't try to enforce the ordinance as carefully as we would
I
elsewhere?
think there are many properties in Enfield, like mine, which are old.
Pre-zoning, right?
Yeah, more than pre-zoning. And I think that you have to take that into consideration. I drove by, I did not stop and talk to them. I drove by. It's a nice house. It's well maintained. It's on an odd shaped lot in, Enfield Center where there's, everybody in Enfield Center might need a variance for something because of the Knox River and the way things are organized in that particular part of town. So, once again, it's yes, again, on the basis of geography. For me.
I mean, I think the ordinances, things with these setbacks and stuff, the ordinances are sort of made for normal situations, not for odd situations.
Nobody has a law book with them.
Well, there's a lot of odd situations.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That's one of them.
Mine's one of them too. There's nothing on my property that's not a setback or something.
All right, I'm writing this down and I'm not sure that I'm correct, so let me read it to you.
Run it by us.
Number 9, property is not unique in the immediate neighborhood. So there are other properties right along the Knox River that are similarly shaped. But point 10, so I said also point 10, allowing this would encourage others to attempt similar growth to address Sealy's concern. And then in 11, I said, in the town, few lots are as oddly shaped as these on the Knox are.
Oh, yeah.
That's for sure.
So if we consider, yeah,
A lot of the watersheds in the lakes are the same boat. With the streams and everything coming down.
yeah. Okay, so ahead of the vote, I'm inclined to say that I think we should not try to, I think we should let this go ahead. I think I can see no problem with the criteria, and that specifically with the hardship, this is a really weirdly shaped lot, and as we have had other situations where the lot is completely covered by all the setbacks, and the work would not actually wouldn't clearly do damage to the water, to the waterway nearby. We have let this go forward, and I'm of a similar mind here. I can't say that this shed would cause damage to the waterway, and I can't say that putting 10 sheds like this on the water would, if everybody in the neighborhood did the same thing. But I don't want to say, no, you can't have a shed.
Well, I'm with you. I
Yeah.
think so too.
So let's have a vote.
Celia, I think Celia's looking for something, or you just
The
stand-
purpose argument, but I don't have my, law book. Are you getting new law books?
Got one I can give you right now.
Pardon
You
me?
like one?
You got them now?
I got one.
Oh, sure.
Can we take 10 minutes?
Am I the only one going voting no?
I mean, when you see what's going
Maybe.
on next to us
Yeah, well.
on Depot Street. My
But
one
I'm gonna
bought
point
that
out to
lot.
our minutes
And
taker
he's putting
that
the house on
we
it
do not,
and it really fills the
record
lot.
the individual's votes. You just,
And he paid
Say.
$69,000
Well, I think that's
for
about
that lot. They put in the forms and they poured them today with the
So
street.
I think we established the precedence here is that you have
Pardon
to,
me?
we established the precedence in the zoning board. You have to do it one way or the other consistently.
Yeah.
Can I have
And we've been
this?
doing it,
This was-
Yes.
the vote at the end of the
Hey,
day,
Matt,
after listening.
Corey
to all
is a
five,
gem.
That's how we do. our vote.
He has done such an incredibly beautiful job.
We're glad to hear that.
And he's been nice to the dog.
Yes.
And when are you gonna fix the back of the house?
What's that?
The back of my house, when are you gonna fix it?
Mrs. Vice Chair.
That's when Bill and Ed will be over
Control of
to work on
I don't do that
that.
anymore.
Tell them they can drive the truck around back. I don't want them to have to park on the driveway and walk all the way around. It's
Okay.
perfectly all right to park back there, but
Oh,
boy,
you're the
does
kind
it
of
look
customer
bad after the winter.
Well, we run up the lawn, so then it's rougher when the landscapers go. Those
Keeps
dang
me awake.
carpenters.
Are you a landscaper that goes around and does it for people, or do you?
I worked for Matt, yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
go out.
So that sheds, I should have asked, that shed's not gonna be a business.
No,
Did you see somebody's advertising for landscaper by the roller rink?
Roller rink.
Where the roller rink was, and they've got this maker space for people that do carpentry and things.
Yep.
And there's a sign up there and it says they're looking for landscapers.
Oh, yeah, well, they're looking to hire some. Yeah, I saw that. Don't let Brian know.
Where, I mean, on that horrible sign they're supposed to
you
take
guys.
down. that's
Yeah,
up
and a
there.
horrible sign they're
Yeah.
supposed to take down.
Yeah.
But then there's the town sign that I can't read.
Not now.
Yeah, that town sign.
They all,
They own a property maintenance company too, the people that bought that.
oh, they do?
Oh, they do?
Yeah.
See, if you don't know, just ask Whitney.
Full disclosure, I am friends with the owners.
They're gonna get rid of their Japanese knotweed.
Oh, I know, there's so much a lot.
You have to cover it with plastic for 5 years.
No, well, it does, that even that doesn't work. It-
Well, that's not gonna help, because the rail trail people mow it, and they
Talk on the
spread
phone
it all
today?
over the place, and it grows where you drop pieces of it.
I don't know if
It's
it
a mess.
grows, I don't know if it grows when you
Yeah.
drop pieces
Yeah.
of the plant. It's-
Yes.
It's,
Okay.
yeah, no, it wasn't big.
And I did recognize her voice. I think I met her. Okay.
On the other side of the bridge where it's-
I have a lot of Japanese,
Oh,
Do you?
Awful.
I have a lot of Japanese.
Very nice, very
knotweed.
helpful.
You know what
Yeah.
Jim Kennedy says? He says the only way to get rid of it is with a flamethrower.
Conservation.
No, I
That's a hard
went
job.
to Billings Farm several years ago.
And
That
she's
the
fantastic.
National Park
And
Service
trying to follow
did.
and
They
really get the
sometimes have
real
these
important.
seminars
Yeah,
on.
yeah.
I'm not good
Your,
at that.
your river, whatever
Yeah.
they property. So
Yeah,
just
me
to
too.
explain, I live in the house where the Knox River comes out at the bank, at the, on the lake. There's a
Okay.
house on either side. I live on the one
Oh,
fifty
yeah.
lake on the road, on the
Yeah.
lake.
Okay.
So I've got,
How's
so
you
like,
live there?
bank, have a lot of Knox, a lot of Knox River.
Crate.
But
Oh,
they
yeah.
said
Okay.
that
So we've
the only,
Okay.
you know, the only thing that is a little
Right
bit
here.
sad is,
You just walk.
applying
Yeah. Nice.
Roundup, but on the stem,
Yeah.
because
Maintain that road.
Yes, you cut it and then put it on the top, right?
a foam that dyes blue, when you spray it on, it
Private
doesn't
road
go all over, and it's
associations
it's the
are-
formula for the Roundup to use in your wetland. And then the blue, you can see where you, where you've done it.
Yep.
And you have to do it, you do it in
nobody
fall
charge.
when it's
So many of them
returning,
be
you
like-
know, when the.
Yeah,
nutrients start
well,
returning.
sucks it back
Ah,
into the plant.
returning.
The individual-
I just took an invasive species class.
I do that.
The one at the,
Yeah.
But there's no one you didn't even-
yeah.
They should.
I remember that, like they say, that-
When-
That's what they said was the best. I was hoping there was going to be something less chemically.
A different amount we could do at the end of the knotweed is so much worse.
Great.
For what it does, especially for the rivers, it changes the temperature of the water.
That is.
It's terrible what it does.
Yeah.
Probably the messiest one. Be flat.
It is, but it's not like, whatever, it's got a name, but it's not, you can't go to everywhere.
Like exactly back when you look at the deed.
Yeah.
It actually is pretty well organized. But nobody will.
But,
Yeah.
That's what it said at the
Yep.
chemical.
And they also mentioned doing it at the right time of year, so it really sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we do our best.
Whatever, it kills the leaves, but it doesn't, the problem with the knotweed is the rhizome
Right.
live, you know, forever.
Your face.
Okay.
Anyway, all right, call to order.
Hi, we talked a lot.
Okay, 10 minutes have passed, at least.
Did Steely find out anything?
No, I don't, I need my other book,
Okay.
which is marked, so I don't, you know, this is like starting all over again.
Sealy.
This
tells me
is,
she's
this
willing
is
to proceed
everything.
without
This
further
is not
research,
just
so.
zoning.
Okay, so the question before you is, shall we approve the application for a variance with lots of other words that about this particular variance? And we've heard discussion about many things, many points of concern, primarily. We have been concerned about the suitability of the soil to support a structure that close to the river. Susan wonders whether, having been the bottom of a mill pond, if perhaps the soil is too muddy and silty underneath to.
I think they're probably above where the mill pond was, just looking at the way the slope goes and the way the, you know, the dams where the fire engine, the fire department is.
Yeah.
I'd say that
That's
they're
possible.
probably above it.
And Sealy's concern is, as we have heard in the past, that we are violating the spirit of the ordinance, and that we should be very carefully and jealously guarding those 50-foot water body protection zones. So with those thoughts in mind, I will ask you to consider your vote carefully, and all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. The motion is defeated 3-2. That does not mean that it doesn't mean that the variance is denied. We have to have an affirmative vote, either for or against, to make our decision. So if somebody would like to make another motion, we will have a second. If we need some discussion, we'll have that, and then we'll vote again.
I move that we grant the variance as applied for.
We've had that motion. It's been defeated.
So what do I have to, how do I have to make the motion?
Well, now, if the three persons who voted against the variance being granted would like to have it denied, one of them must move to deny the variance, and then we vote again.
Wait, say that again, sorry.
Were you in support of it or against it?
I'm against it.
Yeah, and I have to say that I am too. I cannot see a clear path to giving permission to violate the ordinance in this case. And I think Celia, you're.
I guess, Mike, you didn't say that in the beginning. You said you were in favor of it. You said you'd be voting for it.
That is true. I did say that.
Just before we had the vote, you said that. I'm confused with what you did there.
I don't think I did. I think that when it comes down to it and I consider it, I worry about putting another structure that close to the river in that particular location. I would be willing to see this matter adjourned to another hearing and have a soil expert get in there and tell us, is this going to cause any problems with the river? That's an option that's open to us. But as it stands right now, I don't think we have the expertise to say whether or not that is going to be bad in the future. And I can't see enough justification to say that this is a hardship. It would be nice to have a shed there, but that's more convenience than it is actual necessity, for the use of the property. That's my feeling on the matter.
It's different than what you said just before when you said you'd have a hard time denying this. Is what you
I
said
am
just
having a
before
hard
we
time,
did.
yeah.
You said you'd have a hard time, but now you're going to deny it. And
I
that's
am
'cause the
voting
soil scientist-
I am voting not to approve it.
That's what,
Yeah.
You said you'd have a hard time denying this, is what you said.
Yeah.
just
And
right.
it's not very nice to deny it, but is what you're saying.
Now,
Yes.
now we
It's
said.
hard to deny it, but I'm going to deny it anyway. Is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying. It's what I have voted.
People could change their mind.
No, that's okay. I'm just wanting to understand the logic. That's all I'm
Yeah.
going after, is just the logic to understand it. So it's,
You wish that I had indicated clearly beforehand what I was going to vote.
I'd like to
and then I
understand your
can't
logic,
vote
yeah,
that way.
before I
Right.
did my vote too, just to understand where you were, because listening to you, I was pretty much went along with what you were saying. I thought that was great logic. Then when it reverses, that I'm sitting going, I don't understand the switch cycle, but that's prerogative.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the problems that I had were when I realized that Susan had a point about the quality of the soil, and so did Celia. And I'm in the washroom washing my hands and thinking about this, and I realized we don't know. We don't know enough about that land, and we don't have an expert here to tell us enough about that land. If we have a flood, if we have a couple more floods similar to the one that we had last week, we could see that whole structure washed into the river.
And whatever flammable liquids that you said you might be putting into it.
Any kind of tools, any kind of
That could come up there.
a lawnmower that uses gas.
Yes, ma'am.
I would just like to very clearly state for the record that the section of the land we're proposing to put the shed actually does not flood because the river itself is down a bank immediately behind where the wood pile is in some of the photos. The pictures where it's close-ups of the river is on the opposite side of the property. And so I just wanted to make that distinction clear. We're not looking to put the shed where the flooding has historically occurred since we purchased the home in November of 2020.
I'd still like to hear from somebody who, also given the changing climate and the increasing frequency of so-called 100-year floods, I'd feel better if maybe you came back with some sort of expert opinion on that.
Would you like us to hold this open until another meeting date and you could provide that
Mike, can I
opinion?
make a suggestion? Is it too late to make a suggestion?
No,
I think that I drove by there, because I always drive by wherever we're going to
yes,
talk
ma'am.
about. I respectfully suggest that we have a site visit. That everybody go and take a look, because it's such an odd piece of property.
If we had a soil expert or an actuary, in the group that could look at that property and say, this is the 100-year flood risk. This is the type of soil there. And that would make sense. That would help.
But I think that everybody ought to lay up, I think this, everybody ought to lay eyes on what we're talking about, because this is flat.
That, for me, that's not the issue. I feel like that I can go and look at, but my feeling is exactly with the situation in the last few years of 100-year floods that have been happening every 5 years, and the soil and everything else, I feel as if I would like to have somebody who's professional tell me
Yes.
you're a professional, but somebody who's, whose job is that, whether it's a climate specialist or whatever. Because I know when we had to, with our piece of property, FEMA said it was in a flood zone, and we hired we got somebody, an engineer, I don't know who it was, who came and looked at it and said, well, actually, it's not, that's whatever, that's what they do. It's an outside, some sort of outside, I don't know if it was Pathways Engineering or who it was that came, to do that.
Let me point out that if we, just a minute,
I just, if we are,
wait, please.
uh,
Wait. You've paid your fee for the hearing already. If we close this matter out, deny your application, you can come back again, but you'd be paying another fee. If you let us continue it until another meeting date, you can go and get that professional opinion and bring it back to us. You can do that even if we end the hearing here, close it out, and you come back again, you'll have new evidence. Then that'll be fine, but I'd rather.
They can't do that. They have to substantial change in what they're asking for. They just can't come back. They have to be substantial change.
I think new evidence warrants a rehearing, a new hearing.
But he's right. The application has to be different, not just information about the existing
Okay.
application. But I think you're on the right track, is if you continue this.
Yeah.
Then we could meet on site, if that's what you guys think you wanna do.
No.
You can let them, you can
I
let
don't
them
feel
come
it's
with
particularly
more
useful for
information.
me to be on site. I
don't think so either.
need to talk to somebody who knows what they're talking about.
Well,
I feel
you need to see
completely
how
different about
that
this if somebody
trustee
said, hey, you know
That
what,
doesn't help.
a professional.
Because I know that I don't know enough about soil to look at that and
Yeah.
say, yeah, it looks high to me. But that doesn't.
And I also have a question, if so close to the river, do they not need DES approval for this?
No, they don't.
No, because it doesn't.
I
go
did a
into-
soil scientist one time for this committee, Michael, and he still voted against the soil scientist recommendations.
It doesn't mean I will this time.
It goes into the Connecticut DES.
Got it.
I give up. I'm done. Okay.
Okay.
It doesn't go into the
I tried.
But the Mascoma does. So if you're on the Mascoma, you got it.
Got it. Okay.
I'm really not dead set. where I am is so in the middle that I don't want to without better information, I don't want to make the mistake of granting this variance and causing a problem in the future.
I don't disagree with you, Mike. What I would gone back before, look for the continuation or that, is to understand, we know that the applicant is just a landscaper or a landscaper, and I didn't use the term Justin, I did that on purpose. Is that he does deal with the soil, does deal with the plants and things like that. He does have an understanding of what a soil type is and things along that line. We could have asked those questions to understand if he has that information. Or do you
Yeah.
need a real good, to get a certified soil scientist in here?
I need a disinterested party. I need somebody who at least has the appearance of disinterest.
Okay.
Always
Can
gonna
I
have
ask a
a-
question?
That's all.
So, if it's, an impartial party, would it be okay to have like the UNH Extension School, how they do their analysis and provide a report back? Would that
No.
be efficient?
I don't know what their qualifications are. Can you tell me more?
Well, yeah, what, UNH what?
The University of New Hampshire has an extensive, auxiliary education program that's related to agriculture, farming, soil, and they process similarly to how West Lebanon Feed and Supply, give you the information on how you bring in your soil sample and you receive an analysis back.
Oh,
It
it's not
tells
the
you-
same.
So are you looking for something more extensive that you're not interested in what the current composition of the soil is? You're looking for
We're-
something different?
We need a soil scientist. And they'd be able to determine the kind of soil that is not for, mostly for wetland soil. And that's a different
My concern is
ballgame.
a slightly different one, and I'm not,
Drainage.
Yeah, me too.
as I say, I live on the Knox River and that thing changes course, in a week. It forges some new path and it's different all the time. And things that, were once, 5 feet away are now underwater. And that's what worries me, is that's what rivers do. And that's why I don't know, as I say, I don't know who it is. It's not so much that the soil that it's standing on, but what that river can do and what that river can do when it's full.
I want somebody to come in and tell us this soil is suitable for building on. It's not gonna slump and fall into the river, number one. And number two, I want them to come in and say, given the history of the Knox River floods over the last 100 years, it's not gonna jump the banks and wipe away this shed and house. It would take the house too, but I don't want to
think
make the
that's gonna
situation
be-
worse with the shed. So that's what I'm looking for.
So they do, biosolids and septage is one of the tests that you can receive an analysis back. But Sealy's also mentioned wetlands, which typically requires a wetland scientist. I guess I'm looking to find out what the right combination.
Be a soil scientist. Because that's-
Right, but that's a very broad category.
Well,
So-
a soil
One here and then.
scientist will tell you, if that soil is drainable.
Like a perk test. Well, yes, there's a variety of. I guess we're looking for a specific checklist. You want us to provide data.
Well,
back
the
on.
poorly drained, very poorly drained soil, that's a
What,
big.
all I
that's a
can
big
tell you
deal.
is that I know there are people,
Those are wetland soils.
all I can tell you is that I know there are people out there who can come in and say, I have studied soil, I have studied construction sites. And this soil, this area is suitable for building on, or this is not. Or if you want to build here, you need to do this, that, and the other to make the building secure. And I also know there are people who write the actuarial tables for insurance companies who know what the history of flooding and river changes in that area are.
Mhm.
I have to leave it up to you guys to find something like that because I don't know.
Do you not believe that the Knox River,
What I believe in
Warrants,
my own
the
knowledge
protection
is
of
that
the-
I don't know.
that the Knox River comes
Yes,
to
I believe
George
it.
Pond?
I believe it deserves protection and that's why I voted the way I did.
Right.
Ma'am,
Thank you. work with climate scientists at the engineering school at Dartmouth because they're my coworkers. Would that be considered too close or would that still count as an external assessment?
So I would be fine with that.
Okay.
If you have somebody who's willing to put their credentials and their reputation on the line, that's fine with me.
Well, I would say, as much as that, is if you went and asked, said, look, this is what this, these are the zoning board's questions. This is what they're worried about. Maybe they know, maybe there's, as he says, an actuary. I don't know. There, people who do this. I say, I don't remember who came to our land to do it, but that's my concern. She's concerned about the quality of the soil and the filtration capacities. I'm concerned about the flood because I saw what happened in Hurricane Irene
Which
and
is not that
Hurricane
long ago.
and Hurricane
That's right,
Sandy.
damage the townhouse.
What that river did, it just it blew out the bridge. So a little shed is not gonna, those things just get, washed away and the stuff that's in them gets washed away. So that's my concern. So they say, if you, go and talk to people and somebody says, oh, that's what, what so-and-so does, can figure that out. Those are the questions I think we'd feel better about. I mean, I will express myself personally here and say, we aren't people who are happy to say no to people.
Oh, no. We would really like to just give you the green light and say, go. We approve far more than we deny. This one is just, I mean, Ed's irritated with me for flip flopping, but
I am, and I'm also thinking, I'll just build a tent out there and I'll put my lawnmower in the tent. Come on, what, you're not gonna stop them from putting their equipment out there when, I understand what I don't disagree with getting it. I think getting somebody who's a climate scientist to deal with that. I think if we need to get a hydrix, or is it the soil test or something along that line, I think the UNH Extension School does that remarkably
fine,
well.
yeah. I'm
I
not
just
saying that we're,
feel, but I would just feel better. That's
I have a question.
wait. Let me be clear. I'm not trying to stop anyone from doing anything. I don't want to grant a variance for this property in perpetuity until I'm sure that this is not dangerous.
I think asking for the climate, asking for
Yeah.
a soil, test kind of thing, what it is it hydrix, and we have to list what the different types of soils are, and whether it's drainable or not. I think we should ask for those. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
Okay.
Mhm.
Can I ask two more questions? What, Faith and Brian, do you know what year this septic claim was filed with the state and when it was installed?
I believe it was 1973.
Okay, because if it was something really, really recent, there would be. That sort of
there'd be that
documentation Could also be provided.
About as old as mine.
And I'm not aware of any current restrictions on where you can, put your lawnmower, your gas powered string trimmer and that sort of thing on your property. So feasibly, you guys could, I know one of the concerns was aesthetic, you could put those right by the river and the rain could wash up, which would result in more pollution,
You could do that.
which would not be something that you guys would do, because I know you're very environmentally conscious, but it is interesting that this, is denied at this juncture, knowing that there are other people who would really stick it to the man by parking all of their stuff back there and allowing these things to wash.
Well, there are people who just do stuff and don't come to us as
That's
well,
Well,
unfortunately.
one of the pictures is one of my neighbor's houses with a structure right on the river.
You're not getting anywhere with this argument.
No, I know. I'm just saying, no, not at all. I'm
Curious.
So
Yeah,
now
it's
we're gonna
Are
stop.
you guys in agreement with the continuation?
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
please. Yes. I would
All right,
appreciate
we'll continue this.
Matt had one.
Matt had a question.
Yeah, I have a question. So just so we're completely understanding, you're asking for a soil test or just a letter from somebody that's certified saying that a structure can sit in
No.
this location?
No,
No, I want a soil scientist to give us the soil testing, what's there.
So do you want a report of the soil that is
Yes,
there? And then,
She wouldn't list one before.
so this is changing a little bit. So, and now you're asking for, so all you want to know is the soil and they can,
I think
Off
I've
the
heard
building.
three
I-
different things.
No, I don't
they
think
need
so.
to know
That's right.
what you're asking.
One person is interested in knowing if this is, the area that they've selected is
right,
considered.
and he could probably
One
map it,
person
put it
is-
out where what the soil is, like if it changes from one to another spot.
All right, so let's
So-
let Holly finish
So-
so that we can get
So I've heard
some clarification.
three things that, you know, one party is interested in knowing the specific position that has been selected, if it's suitable for building. Another party is interested in knowing about soil composition within, you know, where the pad would be placed, the hard pack for the shed. And then another is interested in drainability of the soil, which can be part and parcel of soil composition, but it can also be entirely different. So those are three different things.
Got the fourth one. I'm interested in what that river can and will do in a big flood. That's what I'm
So
interested
you
in.
can go off with
In relation to just the shed,
FEMA
right?
flood map.
So providing a flood-
Yeah, exactly, a decent
Yeah,
flood map, and I don't,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily that a person comes in here and says, oh, I say they can do it. I would like to have somebody go there and say, we looked at this site and these are our, these are our observations, and so that I just feel like I would be making a decision based on a better sense of what the risks are.
So are you not viewing FEMA as a credible source of data for that? Because they do have extensive maps that are available. Are you asking for somebody not affiliated with the federal
Look at
government?
That's not the formal title though.
I don't,
She's got a river person.
perhaps the FEMA thing would be okay. I don't know. And it also depends on how recent, the FEMA stuff
Let me,
is
let me
not,
collect consensus from the board, all
yes,
right, so that we can speak with one voice to them.
okay.
Please wait. You said a river person, right?
I think that you could subsume all of these questions
Mhm.
with a river expert who would look at the floods and look at the soil and look at the situation. I don't think you need 6 different people. I
No.
think you
You
need
might need to.
one person. You said you have a river person.
I work at the engineering school at Dartmouth, and we have a robust team of climate engineers and climate scientists. I don't know specifically who I would ask, but I would talk to my colleagues and see if anyone is available, interested and willing, as you said, to put their degree and credentials on the line.
And has the kind of expertise that could subsume all the questions that have come up.
Correct.
We only have a few questions.
And you have a lot of questions
No,
and
we
a
only
lot
have a
of
few
different
questions.
details to each question.
Susan, please stop. I understand we're frustrated. It's not a big ask.
Right.
I'm gonna ask that you connect with Rob after the meeting. This is not the only time you get to talk to us. Or you can talk to Rob back and forth. Rob can talk to us individually. We can't talk as a group in email. But he can talk to us individually. But generally what we're looking for, and I'll ask Rob to, when he's ready. I'll ask you, because you probably got more experience getting this kind of information, to look for something that would satisfy our general questions. And what we're concerned about is how likely is the river to flood? So FEMA flood maps or something, I don't know. Is the soil suitable for building? And to satisfy Sealy's requirements, what type of soil is it? Okay, that's 3 questions,
It's much better.
all right? That's probably gonna come from 1 or 2 people, right? And that's all we need. We just need that information. Once you get that, you come back and tell us the answers to those questions. And it can be a report over somebody's signature, that's fine. We don't have to have another person in here. You don't have to pay for their time. Once you have that, we'll make our decision.
Yeah, tell you a motion to continue.
Matt, you look like you want to ask something. I really don't want this discussion to go on any further.
No, I completely agree. I'm just trying, and I think letting Faith and Brian connect with Rob is for the best way, and I think Rob has.
He knows what I want, right?
I think it makes sense. I'm good.
I make a motion that we continue this hearing to the next
Yes,
scheduled meeting.
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. So the record will show that we defeated a motion to approve, that we made a motion and approved the motion to continue, and that we've asked you for additional information. don't take this as a bad sign. All right, don't let this worry you or concern you. It is what it is. We're not unreasonable. We do not want to deny your application. Just we're acting on behalf of the town and the citizens, and we have to make sure that we protect the resources. And we're ignorant. I mean, I'll tell you frankly, the reason that I don't just go out there and look myself, as Susan and Celie suggest, is that I know I don't know.
Well, we do have a big one, the wetlands, the impact on the river, so. I mean, that's the whole thing, and what the state wants and what the town wants,
All
so.
right, this hearing is adjourned. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry it didn't go your way. We'll see you at the next meeting or the one after.
Yeah. Thanks.
Tough one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for
See ya.
sitting through it.
Night.
Rob, where is,
Can I guess, I'd have to say the thing
I
about
would be
the
too.
inconsistency of opinions. You talked about precedents. Celia, you're the one who said when I brought in a soil scientist report, you said you didn't believe him, you knew more than soil scientist. You said that, and I.
What did I, what do you?
Guys,
This is my
let's
garage,
not-
no,
Can we
this is a
not-
point of motion, this is a
Can
point
we
of
talk
fact.
about
Take
this
this offline, outside of the meeting.
outside the meeting? Yeah.
I'm gonna go after you next, Mike, so that's that too, yeah.
You can do that outside of the meeting.
I don't understand. I said something,
so far as.
Years ago.
There's nothing.
It'll be in the minutes,
There's
too.
nothing to discuss in it, so we can.
Okay, does anybody else have anything they want to discuss in the meeting minutes?
There's nothing in the minutes. There's one suggestion on line 71 where I would say zoning ordinance for which they are seeking. I would move the for to in front of the which. There are no errors.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I have a
Good to hear.
format, or I don't know if it's a format thing. We don't do roll call votes.
I was just gonna ask you that, yeah.
We don't do
okay,
roll call votes.
Okay,
So you just say,
numbers.
you say who made the motion. You
Mhm.
don't even have to record who seconded it, but I won't. You know, seconding does not indicate an opinion about the motion. You can simply say Ms. Alfiero moved and it was seconded to table the election. You can do that. And then you say what the vote was.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Rob, I see at the last meeting you discussed future things coming up. Should I give you a call to have that recap, or was there anybody else here who missed the meeting last week?
You can absolutely give me a call anytime.
Okay.
Happy to chat.
Okay, I'd like to adjourn the formal meeting, but I'd like you to leave the recording rolling.
Leave it roll.
Yes.
Okay.
Just because I think Ed wants to talk to us, and with the group of us in the room, we probably shouldn't be unmonitored by the public.
A soil scientist, just to go back to this thing, a soil scientist is somebody that I used in Impossible. And I brought in a soil scientist report that cost me $500. And that soil scientist gave a report saying that certain things were there, certain things weren't there. And Celia made a comment at that meeting that she knew more than the soil scientist. And that was disregard that. I also had an instance where very frustrating when you're going in a direction, you're listening to the comments of the other members of the committee, and you're listening to them, you're understanding where they are, and you ask questions to make sure you understand the position of the other members of the committee. And then when you go into the vote, and the vote of the member of the committee is opposite of what they've just said, or what I thought I heard, it's frustrating trying to understand, because I would have liked to have explored the discussion further in trying to understand where we were in a section like that. So, but everybody has a right to change their opinion, I know that, but to me, the discussion is an important component. And not having to be stuck in any one position, I think is important in understanding where we each are, because I was really surprised with the way the vote went. And, and that shouldn't be, any of us shouldn't be surprised with the vote at the end of the day.
I say that the opposite thing is that as I listened to this, I had misgivings about it and asked myself, do I really want to vote against it and be be the, you know, the not nice person who votes against it. And, you know, I thought it's just gonna be Sealy and I are the only people voting against it. And then Mike voted for, and I said to myself, am I gonna go against Mike? And I said, yeah, I guess I'm gonna go against Mike. And then he, you know, he came out doing something else. So I think that what we have to do is vote what we think and have the courage to do what we think, not necessarily what
No, I
think
know
other
that-
people
no-
are going to
No issues
say.
with the presentation from you. I knew that you were trying to decide and you trying to make up your mind. I knew where Sealy was, and I thought I understood Mike based on his questions and his answers, and I thought those were reasonable questions and reasonable answers. And then when you think you have a reasonable position and you understand where it is, and you say, yeah, I can agree with that, disagree with these things, and I ask questions all the time.
You
And
do.
then when it flips on you like that, you go, what?
You're frustrated with my failing to telegraph correctly what I was gonna,
With,
and
with
and
the,
I'm sorry.
with the logic behind why you were doing it before we got to the vote, because it would have been hard to convince me the other way, but
Yeah.
I go with the logic, you know, the zoning ordinance is an important document. But so to me
Exactly.
is the deed I have to my property.
Oh, I agree.
And understanding those differences and the logic behind it, nobody should be surprised at the end of our votes. That's why what Sealy said, if we voted on individual 5 items, we wouldn't have any surprises. But this way, I ended up with a huge surprise, and I think they did too. I think they walked out and going, what happened?
Yeah. And all I can say is that I'm sorry that I surprised you.
But you've done that before too, in the same kind of thing, and I should have
Yeah.
known better to follow it.
Yeah, I think-
feel like we should, you know, you should vote what you think. They're asking us in a way to vote what is the way we, as we each think. Yes, it's important to hear the reasoning of other people, but it seems to me that the decision is yours. And, you know, we do suddenly say to ourselves, you know what? I'm changing my mind,
It
so.
doesn't go that way for me.
What? I mean, I
Yeah.
understand your emotional feeling about this because I understand that, but I'm just saying that I think that when we vote, we need to vote on our individual reasoning without thinking too much about what other people are going to be doing.
I disagree with that because everything we have to do is based upon what we hear from the others on our committee as well as, that's why we have the private discussion after the public hearing. Is to try and help us understand where each of us is in our positions and why we have those positions.
Yeah.
And to be able to either defend our position or not defend our position. And if you get into the situation where and I'm a debater, and if you don't have the opportunity to talk about and debate things, then you don't get
And,
an honest conclusion.
I
You
see
get,
what
you know,
you're.
get something then I'll go back to something that is emotional versus logic based. And that's the hard point that I have.
Can I clear something up about what I said? Remember when I said it?
Mhm,
I've had soil testing training.
mhm.
And I spent 20 years on the Conservation Commission, and I actually did field work and went out with a soil scientist, and we dug and we did what we're supposed to do to test it. So I'm not oblivious to the soil, to the wetland soil. I've had the wetland training, I've done all this. So, you know, when I say something like that, there's something else there. And I didn't go through with it, but I do know about soil and what can happen with it. And are you talking about your garage?
I am, well, you're asking these people for their credentials. Let's see your credentials versus the soil scientist then. And I don't disagree
But
with
I've
that.
had training.
That's okay. Let's go back to the point here is that I just believe in a robust debate. I may not agree or disagree, and I don't expect it
I
to
think
happen that way, but I
think
want
you're feeling
an honest
betrayed.
debate.
I think you're feeling betrayed. I think you feel like I misled you. And I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you misled them too.
I did not intend to mislead you or them. But that doesn't mean I should vote against my conscience. And I cannot explain to you in a satisfactory, in a way that will satisfy you. I can't explain to you in a way that will help you feel less betrayed. Why I changed my vote at the last moment. I did though.
I guess I don't feel betrayed I feel as though we didn't do justice to the people sitting here because the conclusion didn't follow the logic of the debate. It's not me, because I have no stake in this game. You know,
seem to be
I'm not-
angry though.
No, I'm not. Okay, I'm a passionate salesperson. Anytime I take a position, I will defend that position as much as I can until somebody proves me wrong. What I'm sitting here saying is that we didn't allow them to understand the logic ahead of getting to the vote. And I think that's where we didn't do justice to the applicants. The continuation came up with the best solution, a compromise, Mike, and I agree with the compromise. Thank you for doing that, because you didn't have to do that. Because
Would
it
you
would
like me to be more careful in the future to explain my reasoning about where I am before I make my announcement of a vote? Would that
No, I
help?
think the debate should be, instead of taking the 10-minute break to go get a book, and we were ready to do our vote, and then we stopped. And I think that was the part where, you could have time to reconsider. You should have time to reconsider. And that reconsideration could have been talked about to understand it and maybe have other discussions about why.
That's what I'm asking is, would you like me to be more careful to discuss my reasons for reconsidering?
I think we all should be, yeah. I think every one of us should be, not just you.
Okay, I will try to be more careful about that in the future. You've noted that I've done this at least twice. And I will try not to leave the board.
No
guessing.
one's like you, as Tim Lennon has a segue, so it's not just you.
Just going through this, there were moments when I thought, yeah, they should, yeah, absolutely, we should give them this.
I do
2 minutes
too. I
later,
thought-
I think, no, wait a minute, no, I don't think they should, and you know what?
Right.
I felt as if we discussed all the, we discussed all the stuff that there was to discuss. We went through point by point, and then we made our decision.
Michael said just before we vote, I'm in favor of this. That's what he said, in favor of voting for
That's
this.
true, I did.
That was his last statement.
That's true.
Can we wrap this up, folks?
That's true.
We need to be getting.
Please go home.
We've adjourned
I think
officially.
so.
Yes,